Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Camp, it's an honor to be here before the committee. I spent a great deal of time here when I was in the Clinton administration in the 90s, and I do believe, as the chairman said, that this hearing and the earlier hearings in March and June are in the best tradition of the committee. If you read the record of the March and June hearings, you come away with a very strong understanding of China's currency and trade and industrial policies, and it makes for sobering reading. Let me use my time to make just a few basic points. First, I agree with what has been said about China's intervention in the currency market as a gravely serious problem. There's broad consensus among experts, starting with Fred and his colleagues, the European Central Bank, the IMF managing director, that the RMB is tremendously undervalued vis-a-vis the dollar, and that China's interventions are what keeps it that way. The most recent IMF staff report, dated July 29, notes that the RMB remains substantially below the level consistent with medium-term fundamentals. And then it says, significantly, the real exchange rate is back to the level of 1999 to 2003, when China had no real imbalances. So in other words, what's happened since that time, China's economy has almost doubled in dollar terms. Its productivity has gone up. It has accumulated massive trade surpluses with the rest of the world. The real world economic forces, however, that should have produced a strong currency have been offset by China's intervening in the currency markets. The interventions support China's export-oriented growth strategy, penalize imports, and produce trade and economic imbalances that cause great damage to the United States and many other nations. And so the question, of course, for this committee and Congress and the administration is how to respond. I favor action and I favor response that will maximize the chances of successful rebalancing and adjustment of the currencies, leading currencies, and minimize the chances of a cycle of retaliation and a damaging trade and economic war at a time when the United States and global economy are still fragile. For that reason, I am opposed to many of the legislative approaches that have been considered, even while recognizing the good work that's gone into many of them. From every angle that I approach the problem, I still prefer a continued effort at multilateral diplomacy and negotiation on an urgent basis and recourse to the WTO when necessary or appropriate. Now, members of Congress have worked very intensively with some excellent lawyers to fashion legislation that would basically rewrite U.S. trade laws to make China's currency countervailable. I looked at this question several years ago with my colleague Jim Backus. We prepared a memorandum on the subject. I will make that available, a detailed memorandum available and included in the committee record if that would be all right. And it goes through point by point, the legal analysis. But frankly, my fundamental concern is pretty basic. The basic parameters of the trade remedies laws are well established. I think it's very doubtful that the United States or any other WTO member can break substantial new ground by defining currency manipulation as a violation of the countervailing duty laws, or discovering that it has somehow always been covered by the agreement on subsidies and countervailing measures. I think other countries would be genuinely startled to find that they had agreed to that, because in fact I don't think they have. In my view, the case for multilateral action becomes even stronger because of the nature of the currency issue and the fragility of the global economy. Moreover, I think the G20 was launched relatively recently as a new forum and a vehicle for leading nations to grapple with international economic issues. I recognize, Mr. Chairman, that many people don't think the multilateral steps have worked that they've been tried, the talk has gone on, and nothing has happened. I think it's too early to reach that conclusion. The G20 meetings in Pittsburgh and Toronto were still focused, understandably, on the economic crisis, trying to coordinate responses, the question of how quickly stimulus ought to be withdrawn, the crisis in the Eurozone. Now, with the situation somewhat more stable, although still fragile, I think the November meeting in Seoul would be very timely to launch a negotiation under the auspices of the G20 to rebalance the global currencies. I think the goal should be today's equivalent of the 1985 Plaza Accord that was negotiated, and I was interested that Mr. D'Amico pointed to that as one of the key moments in terms of the health of U.S. industry. I think it is possible to negotiate in a 6-month period of time a rebalancing that would occur over a 2 to 3 year period. And I think that that's the right way to go. I also think it's far more crucial to enlist other countries in this effort. Many countries have been affected adversely by China's currency policy. We are far more likely to get a result from a multilateral effort than we are from what I consider to be a unilateral effort to redefine our trade laws in a way that I don't think pass muster. Finally, Mr. Chairman, I do believe that if the next few months did not see action, that it would be appropriate to go to the WTO under Article 15, Paragraph 4. I think that the case would have some risks because it breaks new ground without question. But that language seems to mean something. When we talk about frustrating the intent of the provisions through exchange policies, that's what China has done. Similarly, they have violated Article 4 of the IMF Articles of Agreement. So consequently, I would be advocating that course of action as a backstop. Thank you.